Hey guys, what's up? It's Mark here from Spartan Games, and it has been a while. And I wish I could say that the reason I'm making a video today is good news, but it's not. Thursday, I received an email from Spartan Games that said they're making a sad announcement, and essentially they had stopped trading, which meant that, in basic terms, the store was closed. The company was gone. And funnily enough, I got this email after I read the statement on Facebook because I was a member of, and I still am a member of, the Dystopian Wars and Legions group, and I am also a member of the Firestorm Armada Admirals group. Now, what does this mean? Basically, what it means is Spartan Games is no longer a company. They have shut their doors. They are attempting to, well, I guess they're going through the process of the creditors getting paid and everything that happens when a company goes out of business because they couldn't pay their bills. Now, what does that mean? That means that there will be no new products for Dystopian Wars, there will be no new products for Firestorm Armada or Planetfall or Dystopian Legions anymore. Unless another company were to pick up the product lines. And I know on Facebook there's talk of that, and I don't know how much of it is wishful thinking and how much of it might actually be rooted in some kind of a fact. Granted, Dystopian Wars is a very popular, I believe, product line, so there might be some truth to the fact that a company would be looking to pick that up. Now, I know if you've watched the channel, if you've been here from the beginning, you'll know that the Spartan Games products, the Spartan Games lines, were very, very popular with us. We played them a lot. We started with Uncharted Seas, we moved right into Firestorm, and then we moved right into Dystopian Wars. It's just something that we enjoyed and that we played. And Spartan Games as a company that I was with as a customer from the very beginning. I remember when Uncharted Seas first came out, I had seen it right before going to Historicon. And I made up my mind that when Lichlord and I went to that year's Historicon, I was going to look for the starter sets. Found them. Bought, I think there was 4 factions out at the time. I think it was the humans, the dwarves, the orcs, and the elves. And we bought each starter. Each faction starter we bought. We came home, we played like 3 or 4 games that night. It was just that much fun. So when Firestorm Armada came out, we jumped into that. The group that we played with didn't quite pick that up as much as it did Uncharted Seas, so we sort of put that on the back burner. Now, Uncharted Seas, we had every fleet. We had every fleet. We had almost all the expansions for the fleets. Excuse me, my eye itches. So we had bought heavy into that game. And then Dystopian Wars came out. And Dystopian Wars, for me, was kind of everything that I had been looking for in a naval combat game. Now, don't be wrong, I loved Uncharted Seas and it was fun, but I wanted big battleships with turrets and, you know, missiles and all that good stuff. I wanted basically World War II type naval engagements, just without all the extra rules that some of the systems bring with, like, Command at Sea. I've played that game, and I don't like having to have a degree in math to play a game. So, we bought into Dystopian Wars. We bought into it good. I have 3 fleets. The Lichlord, he had 3 fleets before he left. Then my gaming group, my father has a French fleet. Our buddy Rick has a British and a Japanese fleet. And Dom from Dragon Strike Studios has a Prussian and a French fleet. So we had a lot of the fleets covered up here. And we played from version 1 right up until now, the end. And we'll probably keep playing, but the thing of it is, I know a lot of us were looking forward to the expansion that was supposed to be coming out with the Kickstarter. You know, new ships, keep the game fresh, new rules that hopefully would have cleaned up some of the things that were problematic in 2.0. And now we're not getting that. Dom and I had dabbled in Firestorm Planetfall, mostly because it was cool ground sci-fi combat, and it sort of scratched an itch that we hadn't been able to get in a while. Uh, I was even starting to get back into Firestorm Armada because the 3.0 Kickstarter had come out, and it looked like it was going to be good. I wasn't overly in love with like the pathogen ships that they were showing, but that was okay. I mean, I don't have to love every faction of the game. Um, and then Thursday happened, and it was a rough blow. I wasn't expecting it. And now I know a lot of you out there watching the video, and I know this myself, are going to think, well, miniatures companies come and go. This is a hobby that has a turnover rate. And I agree. Like, I played the original Warzone back in the day. I played Vor, the Maelstrom, and I know both those games were dead games. They were dead when I picked them up. But, and another dead game that I played was Starship Troopers. I bought into that real heavy when it came out from Mongoose Publishing. I had even signed up to try to be one of their demo guys for the game, and then it disappeared. And there's some similarities between what happened with Mongoose and what I think kind of happened with Spartan that I'm going to talk about. But the difference for me between, say, Vor or Warzone or even Starship Troopers is two of those games were dead when I bought into them. I found armies on Amazon and on eBay, and I did it that way. Starship Troopers was a game that I was really into. My group never quite picked it up, and I was the only one pushing it. And when it ended, it was just something I didn't have to spend money on anymore. And I have all the models. I could still play it if I wanted to, but it wasn't the polished game that I wanted. Whereas Spartan Games and their games, I've loved. I've loved since they came out. And everyone in my group enjoyed playing those games. We got excited when new models came out. We got excited for new rules and expansions. So this is kind of like losing a friend almost. And it's been rough, and that's why I wanted to make this video and talk about it a little bit. So you have that. Now, I don't know why they closed. I mean, clearly they ran out of money. Clearly, that's what happened. The people that gave them the money, creditors came in, and it was banks got involved, and that's what's happening. But I don't know all the reasons. So let me first talk about what I think might have happened, and then I'm going to bring up the small comparison between what happened with Mongoose Publishing and what I think happened with Spartan Games. So, Spartan Games wasn't a big company to begin with. I don't think they were ever a huge company. They weren't like a gaming juggernaut. They did some impressive things. They did their own models. They had a printing company, and everything came from the UK. They started off with Uncharted Seas. And I guess if you're looking back on it now, you can kind of see the problem that Spartan Games had. And that was, once Uncharted Seas had gotten to a certain point where it was a big game, there was a lot of factions, there was stuff talked about in the fluff and things that had been talked about. Like, they had talked about a 25 or 28 millimeter, I think, skirmish game that they were going to do for that too. All this stuff had been talked about, and it was at the point where it could have become a stable, driving core game. They jumped to Firestorm Armada. And I'm not saying that was a bad thing. You know, it's not bad to have two core product lines. And Firestorm Armada came out, and it was good. It wasn't super great because the first edition I thought was a little rough. But it was fun. And then Firestorm Armada did kind of the same thing. It grew and grew and grew and grew. There was a lot of factions. There was allies. There was fluff book. There was like army books that kind of had come out, and they were even talking about doing a miniature, like the first attempt at their 20 millimeter game for that. And then all of a sudden they jumped into Dystopian Wars. And Dystopian Wars came out, and I think Dystopian Wars ended up being bigger than Spartan thought it was going to be. Because I think it touched a chord with a lot of the player base that played historical games, and they wanted that kind of semi-historical feel. And a lot of people just love alternate history and steampunk, and it was both of those things as well. And the game was a juggernaut, and it was one they focused on for a long time. And in doing so, Uncharted Seas fell by the wayside. And, I mean, it fell hard. Initially, they stopped selling the products anything but direct from them, and you could download all the rules. And then, all of a sudden, there was a brief talk of Uncharted Seas 2.0. And that didn't happen. And then, all of a sudden, you could no longer buy the models directly from them, and all the rules were gone. And Uncharted Seas had quietly slipped below the waves, and it was gone. And that kind of was odd, but I accepted it. I moved on because I hadn't really played it in a while. And Dystopian Wars was still chugging along strong, and they released the second edition of Firestorm Armada, and everything was pretty good. And then we got Dystopian Wars 2.0. And a lot of the things that they had talked about kind of didn't happen, now that I think about it. Like, there was talk from the very beginning of all of the three big blocks, which was the Grand Alliance, basically the Axis, which was the Allied League or something along those lines, and the Free States, or the Free Nations, which is what the Covenant was in. There was talk of all three of them getting, like, army books, essentially, which would have all the rules and the background information in them, kind of like the Kurok Alliance and the Zinnian League books were for Firestorm. And I was really super stoked for that, and that never happened. It was something that was supposed to come out with the 2.5 Kickstarter, and well, now that's not going to happen either. There was talk of campaign books. There was talk of expanding the background of the game, and I was excited for that, and that never happened. We got new models, which was cool. We got a couple of new factions, which kept interest in the game alive. And then the 2.5 Kickstarter for Dystopian Wars came out. Well, before the 2.5 Kickstarter, there was Planetfall for Firestorm Armada. And I was really stoked for Planetfall, because I like sci-fi games, and I like the scale that, like, Firestorm Armada and Dystopian Wars was in. And this was like a 20 mil sci-fi game, so I was all about it. Bought in 2 factions, and I know Dom from Dragon Strike Studios bought, I think, 1 or 2 factions. So if we want to, we can still play that as well. And that game was rocky. And what do I mean by rocky? I mean, the releases came, and like all the core helixes, as they were called, kind of came out. And then it went quiet for a little while, and then there was another splash release of these helixes. And then the game just quietly went off into a corner and was forgotten about. Which there's a reason for that, I think, but I'm going to cover that when I talk about the other connection between that and what I think happened with Mongoose. So then the 2.5 Kickstarter comes out for Dystopian Wars. And that got me excited, man. It got the whole group excited, because they talked about the faction books, they talked about campaign books, they were going to do different box sets, like starter sets, different fleet sets, and it was exciting. And the Kickstarter came and it went, and I was watching the forums, and I was watching the War Store, which is where I usually buy my stuff, and the 2.5 rulebook sat on the War Store's pre-orders. And it sat there, and it sat there, and it was supposed to come out in July. And then it went to announce date to be determined, or to be announced. And I thought that was weird, but I thought, well, maybe the Kickstarter got delayed, because Kickstarter has issues, and I got that. But the thing the thing to remember is when the Dystopian Wars expansion Kickstarter first came out, their plan was totally different than what we got. They wanted to give us a 20mm or 15mm Dystopian Wars, like, ground combat game, and they floated that idea on the forum, and it got shot down. And it was basically the people like us that love the game were like, look, stop. You're making too many different games. We want you to focus on your core products, and you're not. And we need you to. It's what we want. So to their credit, they scrapped that idea, and they went just full into the Dystopian Wars products. Now, might they have scrapped that 20mm or 15mm Dystopian Wars game because they knew they were going to start getting in trouble? I don't know. And after the Kickstarter for 2.5 came out, we had the Firestorm Armada for 3.0. And that was still in the process of going right up until the company closed. Because I had just gotten an email, I think 2 or 3 days before I got the company closure email, that was showing off models from the Firestorm Kickstarter and, you know, go come be a backer, we've added new stretch goals, this and that. So, you know, they didn't know how bad it was, or they thought maybe the Firestorm Armada Kickstarter would save them. It didn't. So that brings us up to them closing their doors. Now, there's a couple of games I didn't mention. Both Dystopian Wars and Firestorm Armada had their fleet action games, which were supposed to be quicker rules, easier to get into, faster-paced games. I really never heard anybody talk about them aside from the models because, well, they added to the game. So there was that. Now, here is one of the things that I think probably contributed to Spartan Games having to close their doors. I've talked about Mongoose Publishing. I've talked about their experience with the Starship Troopers game that left everybody kind of like, what the fuck? Well, during the time Mongoose was doing Starship Troopers, they were also working on a modern, near-future 25mm game that initially was going to be hard plastics that you put together and, you know, all the good stuff that comes with being a miniatures gamer. And then they switched to pre-painted, pre-assembled models. And then there was talk on their forums of obtaining a video game license and putting out models related to the video game. And I believe at the time it was never said, but the video game that I believe in question was Battlefield, one of the Battlefield games. And the longer that they went on with this trying to get the license and hammer out what was going on, the less that came out until finally they stopped making their miniatures games. They stopped. They had the rights for the Judge Dredd game. They were doing Starship Troopers. They had their Battlefield Evolution game, and it all stopped. And I think you can draw a parallel between Mongoose and Spartan because Mongoose, they were a strong role-playing company. They still are. They're still around. They still make role-playing games. But they were kind of a small miniatures company dabbling. And I think that taking on a video game license or trying to is what kind of sunk them. And if you keep up with Spartan Games, you're going to know what I'm about to talk about, and it's their Halo game. They acquired the Halo license to make Halo products. This meant we got a Halo fleet action game, we got a Halo ground command game. These are games I don't think anybody in the Spartan Games community wanted. I didn't ever see anybody going, man, Halo would be cool. There might have been some people, but I think the vast majority of us were just like, we kind of thought, what the hell are you doing when they got the license? And the thing that I think kind of kills me there is by obtaining the license, they had to pay for it, obviously. And then I don't know how obtaining licenses for popular brands works, but I'm assuming you have to pay some kind of sum to create things based off of that license even after you have it. Which meant that when they made their fleet action game, and they gave us the Covenant fleet and the UNSC fleet, it took resources away from another game that they already had that was a space combat game, which was Firestorm Armada. You know, they could have been putting out new rules, new models for Firestorm Armada, but instead they were trying to push the Halo game. And then Halo Ground Command came out kind of roughly right on the heels of Planetfall, and part of me thinks that's why Planetfall went into a dark corner and was kind of forgotten about, is they were trying to really get the Halo games going. And again, you were putting money and resources into something that you essentially already had in a world that was your own, that had more factions and more options, and you could do whatever you wanted with. And I think for a smaller company like Spartan Games, I think that was part of the reason that they went under, is I think they couldn't quite handle that when what came with it. And there was other things, like I know on the forums there was always complaints that Spartan didn't listen to their customers. They didn't really deliver on a lot of the things that they had said they were going to. And I think part of that is just because deep down at the end of the day, I think Spartan Games, which was run by Neil, Spartan Neil. I don't know what his last name was, and I don't want to know. I'm not that interested. I think he was really passionate about making games. And I think that passion translated into any game that he thought of that could kind of run on the rule system that they had originally come up with Uncharted Seas. He would latch on to and see if he could make work in their kind of their system. And like I understand that. I've been trying to make my own game for a couple of years now, and I have the same issue where like I jump from thing to thing. The difference is I don't own a company at the moment. I'm not running a business that people A are relying on because they work for me, and B my customers aren't relying on for entertainment and their enjoyment. And I think that was one of the things that Spartan really probably should have buckled down on and forced themselves to focus on was, giving the customers what they wanted. Because now we don't get anything. Now, despite all the cool ideas that Neil might have had and the other guys from Spartan might have had, we're never going to see them. Whereas if maybe they would have just focused down and really doubled down their efforts on Firestorm Armada and Dystopian Wars, and really gave really did what they were going to do with the universes and put the models out there and just formed a solid core to stand on, then they could have done things like Dystopian Legions or Planetfall or the fighter game they were trying to make. They could have even maybe brought Uncharted Seas back. They could have done all that stuff. But their core, I feel, was kind of like a bunch of poorly stacked boxes that if you would have put the box by itself or maybe stacked two of them tightly together, would have given you the strong core you needed to kind of stand on. They were wobbly and didn't quite fit together, and they ended up toppling. And this is all just me kind of talking and getting my feelings out because I don't know really what happened with the company. And their products were fun, and I will give them that they, when they updated their rules, they put it out for free on their website. So if you have any of their games, check the website, see if it's still up, and snap up any of the downloads that they have. What would be really great of them is if they would put the 2.5 rules as a free PDF on the website before it's gone. I don't know if they will. Don't know if they'll be allowed to, because I don't know at the moment if they actually own any of that stuff. So that's where we're at. That is goodbye Spartan Games. The company's gone. The one we knew is gone. Now I know on Facebook and on some of the forums there's some talk and some chatter that maybe another company's going to pick up one of the lines or there's hope that maybe Dystopian Wars will get picked up by somebody and kept going. There's hope that Firestorm Armada will get picked up by somebody and kept going. Could it happen? Yeah. I mean, they're both, I think, rather popular lines. And while there's a good number of free space combat rules out there, there's only a handful of supported space combat games. And none of them really were the same as Firestorm Armada. Could I think of a company that I would love to see pick up Dystopian Wars? Yeah. Some of their products are sitting on my table right now, and that's Warlord Games. Mostly because Warlord Games puts out fantastic products. I'm happy with what they do. And they're a historical miniatures company, but they also have some sci-fi games now. So do I think that they could pick up Dystopian Wars and do good things with it? Yes I do. Do I think they will? Probably not. I don't know if they would even consider it. But that's where we're at. In the comments, if you guys want to talk about what you think happened, or tell us what you enjoyed about Spartan Games or their products, by all means, go ahead. But this will be probably the last video that I do on Spartan Games. I probably won't do any more Dystopian Wars videos or any more Planetfall videos because I'm going to move on. My gaming group and I will still play Dystopian Wars for the most part. We have all the models we need. But with nothing new coming out, nothing fresh, some games are going to come along that are going to take our interest, and we're going to probably box it up and come back to it every once in a great while. That's just what happens with dead games. I hate to say it. So, talking about things changing and things kind of going away, I'm going to be making some changes to the channel. What do I mean by that? Well, all the Spartan Games videos that we did, I'm going to put them all into a single playlist, and I'm going to call it the Spartan Games Vault. And if you want to watch any of our former Spartan Games content, you're going to have to just, go to the Spartan Games Vault and do it. And then all the other videos, whether it be old videos talking about board games or unboxings or any of that stuff, old movie reviews, the book reviews that Lichdor did, all that stuff is going to get compiled and put into a single playlist called the Poolshed Games Vault. Mostly because things have changed here at the channel. I am now the sole person running the channel. The Lich Lord is no longer a part of it, so those videos will be in the vault because it's part of the founding of the channel. But moving forward, I want people to be able to focus on the new content that I'm going to be putting out. I'm going to be doing new videos talking about games that we'll be playing, both tabletop and RPG. I am going to, maybe, if my players agree, try to do, I don't know if it'll be streaming or if it'll just be kind of recorded episodes of a Starfinder campaign that I'll be running. And a buddy of mine and I are going to start trying to do a video game stream maybe once a week. Now that won't be on YouTube, that'll be on Mixer, which you probably maybe don't know what Mixer is. Mixer is a broadcasting streaming service that I guess Microsoft picked up, and it's on the Xbox One. And that's the reason I'm going to use it, because the games we play will mostly be on Xbox One, and it'll just be easier. If I can port the videos somehow over to YouTube, I will. If I can't, I'll put a link on the channel's description to that, so if you want to watch us be horrible at video games, you can. Don't go there if you're expecting elite gameplay, because you won't get it. It won't happen. I've also been talking to a friend of mine about doing a podcast, so we're going to see about that. And I have a friend here that I need to touch base with again to see if he'd be interested in joining me again on the channel, because it would be nice to have a second person for battle reports and even camera work, because I'm trying to get a good camcorder for you guys and for this. My Kindle works, but it is a half-ass camera rig system, and trying to operate it on my own is not my favorite thing in the world. So that's stuff you can look forward to. Hopefully you're taking the loss of Spartan Games as well as you can, because, I mean, nothing we can do about it. Like I said, if there's anything you want to talk about with the going of Spartan Games, leave a comment. We can discuss it. And we'll see you next time here at Poolshed Games.